Okay, let's dive into something really important today. We got a question from you that's incredibly honest, and brave.
Yeah, it really cuts deep.
Yeah,
About facing intense anxiety after stopping pornography use.
exactly. And asking pretty bluntly, is this feeling fucked up part of healing? That really hits hard.
It absolutely does, and it takes real courage to even articulate that, because it touches on that raw vulnerability when you step away from something that's been a coping mechanism for a long time.
Right. And the source material you shared, it speaks directly to this. We're looking at parts of a piece called Facing Anxiety and Building Resilience After Pornography.
Hmm.
So our mission, kind of, for this deep dive is to unpack what this source says. Is this intense feeling you're having actually, recognized, maybe even a necessary step when you stop using something that helped you manage?
Okay, yeah. So let's start right there with validating that raw experience you described, feeling so anxious all the time, wanting to disappear.
That feeling is powerful.
Definitely. And this piece, it validates that completely. It talks about this as like the challenging emotional landscape you hit when you stop a compulsive behavior, something you used to manage stress, loneliness, anxiety, boredom even.
Right, those difficult internal states. And the source makes a really key link back to your history. You mentioned using a lot of porn when you were around 13, 16 due to severe anxiety issues.
Yeah, and it highlights how those early experiences may be lacking other ways to cope with really big, tough emotions back then, like fear or shame or pain.
Especially at that formative age.
Exactly. Pornography probably became, well, what the source calls a safe haven.
Hmm, a safe
A way
haven.
to kind of numb things out, maybe, to desensitize from that emotional pain or just turn down the volume on those overwhelming feelings. It became the strategy.
So it makes sense then, doesn't it? Being 3 days without that tool, that mechanism, you're now, as the source puts it, facing your anxiety raw.
Which is precisely why it feels so intense, so exposed. And the piece acknowledges that feeling, saying it can be like a stark realization of how fucked up things feel when that numbing layer is suddenly gone.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, right? The perspective shift in the material.
Yeah, this is crucial. Because the source argues this intense discomfort isn't a sign that you're permanently broken or that you're failing.
Not at all.
Quite the opposite, actually. It presents this discomfort, this anxiety bubbling up as evidence, proof that the underlying pain, the unresolved stuff that was being pushed down.
Is finally coming to the surface.
Exactly. And that, according to this perspective, is precisely where real healing actually starts.
So it's a total reframe.
A fundamental one. Viewing this raw anxiety not as some flaw in you, but as your system finally processing what it's been avoiding, your body, your mind, starting the work.
That's self-awareness, then seeing the discomfort as part of a necessary process, not as proof something's wrong with you, that's presented as key, absolutely key for recovery.
hmm It means you're moving beyond just surviving by numbing out. You're starting the, well, often messy and painful work of really living and healing.
It's a phase, though. A necessary one, even if it feels awful right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Necessary, but incredibly difficult.
Okay, so given how hard it feels, what does the source offer? Any strategies for getting through this, for navigating these really raw emotions?
Yeah, it lays out some interesting angles and practical approaches. One is about embracing the raw emotions through, like, mindful observation.
Instead of fighting it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of that instinct to just push it away or run from it, the idea is to explore it, get curious about it, like an observer, without immediately judging it or reacting.
How does that work practically?
Well, noticing the physical sensations maybe. Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts come up? Just watching them. Techniques like focusing on your breath or maybe a body scan can help you stay present with the feeling without getting totally swept away.
Journaling, too, it mentions.
Right. Journaling can be a release, help get some clarity. And the point here isn't like, poof, the anxiety vanishes instantly.
No quick fix.
No. It's more about building your capacity to tolerate it, to sit with it. And when you do that, it starts to lose some of its power to just automatically drive you back to the old behaviors.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second strategy, it tackles that feeling you mentioned wanting to disappear.
Yes, that powerful urge. The source connects this to what it calls the addict subpersonality, or maybe the addictive voice.
The addictive voice.
It's like that part of you that's laser focused on escaping the pain. And even though it feels like it's you wanting to disappear, this piece suggests thinking of it as representing those old, deeply ingrained coping patterns.
So the strategy is what? To argue with it.
Kind of. to
And
start challenging it
right.
by first recognizing it as separate from your core self, the part of you that actually wants to heal, that wants a different life.
How do you challenge it?
It mentions things like maybe internally dialoguing with that part, or using really strong affirming statements to create some distance, like saying to yourself, I never use porn or masturbate now. Something clear and decisive.
Interesting. So it's about creating space between the feeling and the action?
Precisely. The source highlights that the real choice point isn't necessarily stopping the feeling itself, because that might be impossible in the moment. But it's about recognizing the feeling, recognizing that voice, and then making a different choice right there in that moment of intensity.
Okay. And the third strategy sounds vital, countering isolation with connection.
Yes. That urge to disappear is basically an urge towards isolation.
Yeah.
And the source really emphasizes how isolation just fuels the whole cycle of compulsive behavior.
It keeps it going.
Totally. So reaching out, even in a really small way, actively disrupts that pattern. I mean,
Yeah.
you writing in with this question, that itself is a powerful act of connection.
That's a great point.
Connecting with people who get it, maybe support groups, online forums, and accountability partner that gives you essential support. It reminds you you're not alone in this. Sharing what's really going on inside, even when it feels hard or embarrassing, is presented as just fundamental to healing.
Okay, so mindfulness, challenging that disappear voice, and connection, those are concrete things. And the source also talks about the brain, right?
It does, yeah. It touches on how using porn to numb anxiety, especially starting young, well, it basically taught your brain something.
Caught it what?
To associate that behavior with quick, temporary relief. It wired in certain neural pathways, reinforcing that connection. Feel bad, use porn, feel relief, temporarily.
Okay, so those pathways got strong.
Very strong. So when you suddenly stop providing that intense stimulus, your brain and your whole nervous system, they have to adjust. It's like, whoa, where's the usual input?
And that adjustment feels like?
Heightened anxiety, discomfort. It's your system recalibrating. It's trying to find a new equilibrium.
But, and this feels really important, the source stresses that the brain can change, right? It's not like this is permanent damage.
Absolutely crucial point. The brain has this amazing capacity for change, for relearning, neuroplasticity, you know.
Sure, yeah.
So by consistently choosing different responses when that anxiety hits, by practicing those healthier coping mechanisms we talked
Like
about.
mindfulness or reaching out.
Exactly. You are literally physically creating new neural pathways. You're building new roads in your brain. So the intensity you feel now, it's not a sign you're broken forever. It's part of this dynamic rewiring process.
That's a hopeful perspective.
It really is. And there's another powerful idea in this piece, too, about shifting your focus.
Shifting it from what to what?
From just focusing on stopping the porn use to actively building the kind of life you actually want to live.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, it kind of poses the question, what kind of life aligns more with your values, with the person you genuinely want to be? What does that look like?
So it's not just about not doing something.
No, it's about doing other things. Actively engaging in interests that feel meaningful to you. Prioritizing physical activity, maybe. Pursuing real, genuine connections with people.
And how does that help with the anxiety?
Well, these activities aren't just like distractions, though they can help with that too. They start to fill the void that the compulsive behavior left. And they naturally shift your focus and energy away from constantly battling the anxiety itself. You're putting energy into building something positive.
Right. Moving from fighting the unwanted to building the wanted.
Exactly. Shifting the energy.
Okay. So if we try to pull all these threads together from the source material,
Yeah.
what are the main takeaways for you listening right now?
Well, first, that really intense feeling, the one you described as feeling fucked up, that overwhelming anxiety, it's incredibly difficult. Let's not minimize that.
No, it's real. But
But crucially, it's also powerful evidence. It's a signal, maybe, that you're actually on the brink of some really significant change. It's proof the old numbing system is offline, and the real work is starting.
okay. And second, that urge to disappear, to escape.
That's likely tied to that specific internal voice, the addictive voice. And the key is learning to recognize it. See it as separate from your core self. That creates a space, a choice point, right in that moment of intensity.
And thirdly, connection.
Yes. Actively fighting that urge to isolate by leaning into connection, even just a little bit. That's not just a nice idea. It's presented as fundamental. It's part of rewiring your system towards healing, towards building real resilience.
Your past use, it was a strategy you learned, probably quite young, to manage pain.
And now, by facing that pain directly, even though it's hard,
Mm.
you're actually creating the chance to learn healthier ways to cope, to build a life based on things like genuine connection and emotional strength.
So this period right now, this raw anxiety, it's really a testament to how deep this change process goes. And it takes enormous strength just to stay present with these feelings. Don't underestimate that.
Absolutely. And the source highlights this too, your willingness to keep trying, the fact that you reached out, that you asked this question. That itself is the resource you need right now. Tap into that strength.
So the core message here seems to be you are not fucked up.
Yeah.
What you're experiencing is the challenging, yes, but also absolutely vital process of healing, of reclaiming your ability to navigate your own emotional world without needing something external to numb it.
hmm So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe just keep leaning into that possibility, that different life you want to build for yourself.
Yeah. And remember what the source emphasizes. Seeking connection, especially when that urge to disappear feels so strong, is a huge step. It's a fundamental part of finding your way through this really challenging but ultimately transformative process.